So Hyundai just quietly jammed one into a whole bunch of customers who've been waiting patiently in line for one of their brand new cars. Owing to the global shortage of personal lubricant, none was offered in this instance. What can we do? I'd suggest it would be impolite not to return the favour, would it not? I am, after all, renowned for my politeness. I'm John Cadogan from AutoExpert.com.au, and I get new cars cheap. Even in the most pornographically perverse new car market in the history of new cars and pornography. Website? Card? Somewhere up there, maybe? Who knows? In the immortal words of brilliant but dead social philosopher Bon Scott, getting beat up, broken boned, getting had, getting took. I tell you folks, it just doesn't have to be this way at the car dealership. Just saying. Over to you, dude. Now, Hyundai Shitsville just had a bunch of senior executive meetings, and that is always ominous, let's face it. The upshot is, if you've been waiting patiently with yo snout jammed up the rear end of a new Hyundai Q for months, endlessly now, and your new Hyundai will not be forthcoming before the 1st of August, prices are going up. Yes. And the new exciting proposition for you could well be pay more, dude, or join the fuck you, as we say in Australia. Now, I know that this might not translate if you're not from around here. But you proud Shitsvillian sons of Anzacs, you know exactly where the fuck you is, don't you? It's right next to Far Cornell, where James Cook dropped anchor so famously all those years ago. Congratulations and thank you for choosing to order a Hyundai vehicle. We are grateful and privileged to welcome you to our Hyundai family. Did you hear the knife coming out in those first two sentences? Because, dude, I certainly did. I'm also getting a sense that a standard-sized air sickness bag might be inadequate for what follows in the domain of Linda Blair projectile vomit-esque containment. Don't say I never warned you. We wish to inform you that effective 1 August 2022, we will regrettably be implementing a price increase across a select range of Hyundai products. Any vehicles sold and or delivered from this date will be impacted by the price rise. It's all just a roller coaster, the full weasel word anthology of not our fault excuses, including an allegedly unprecedented rise in raw material costs, inflationary pressures across the supply chain, build complexity, quote, geographical location of the Hyundai production plant. I was unaware that they had moved it. Go figure. I thought Ulsan was still there smack bang in the middle of Southeast Asia. I must strive harder to keep up. And the, quote, specialised nature of the product. Whatever the fuck that means. Now, you can see from that extremely helpful table exactly how deep the reaming might be in your case if your snout is jammed deep in that queue. Deepest reaming I-20N for a cheeky $2,000. Balance of reamings either $500 or $1,200. Total impact of reamings 42% of the model range, according to them. Someone actually took the time to calculate that. Go figure. Certainly not me. So, how about we do a little economics thought experiment on all of this? Hyundai has sold 38,000 cars here so far this year, right? And just spitballing it a bit, perhaps they have 5,000 to 10,000 orders for cars on the reaming list, on the books, which they will be unable to fulfill before insertion o'clock, or August the 1st, as it was, previously known. And let us assume helpfully that the average reaming depth is an altitude of, I don't know, about $1,000. This is therefore, in my view, a grubby little grab for cash to the tune of $5 to $10 million ballpark to be extracted from people just like you who sat down across from an Hyundai dealer despite having 30 other brands to buy from, potentially, and negotiated a price during that horrible endurance event that we call buying a car, and then waited patiently to, quote, join the family. Hyundai Motor is, of course, a multi-trillion won operation spanning the globe with about 130 billion shitsvillian micro pesos in annual revenue and 260 billion in assets. And they've taken the decision to come after potential family joiners, such as your good self, for $1,200 a piece or something. Dude, if only the dictionary were a picture book, we'd finally know what chicken shittery looked like. What a relief. Like, they could have just said, blah, 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 plus the horrendous cost of moving Ulsan all the way up north to Bumfuckistan means that prices are up from the 1st of August. But never fear, orders placed prior to that will be price protected because we appreciate and value your commitment to us. The options were the money or the ethics, and they chose the money. If you're wondering how decisions like this get made, you basically need to understand the structure of a car import operation here in Australia, because this does impact the thought process. There's a senior executive management team, right, comprising the elite shot callers, which operates in a skiff-like boardroom that super insulates them from the real world. From people like you and me and our hopes and dreams, basically. And the composition of this team really matters if you want to get this sort of import operation right. These people are carefully selected, like, dude, there's a process. It helps to remember the following acronym. SEWA. Snakes, eunuchs, wankers, weasels and rats. That's what it takes to import cars successfully in this country. I'm not talking about Hyundai specifically here. I mean, all car import operations use this fundamental model. It's in all the textbooks. Snakes are, of course, the commercial guys, and they're not actually in the car business at all. They're in the money business. These dudes get the money in the door, right? They're extremely important. They think that using a spreadsheet is just like multivariable calculus, only harder. Pro tip, it's not. The top dude in a car import operation is invariably a snake. He's here under sufferance most often, and often pretty high up on the sociopathy spectrum, as is his number one bum boy, typically. Team Snake is on top in the skiff. About this there is absolutely no doubt. Eunuchs are the unfortunate lot who actually care about cars, and sadly they have a real passion for the product and, heaven forbid, actual technical qualifications relating to that product. Product planning, technical training, compliance, technical things of that nature. These people would not work in any other industry, cars or death kind of thing. To Team Eunuch, cars are something to embrace, even to love. They're visceral things. They care about cars a lot. Eunuchs eat endless shit just to embrace the privilege of actually getting their hands on new cars every day. To everyone else on the board, of course, cars are merely an abstraction. They might as well be selling rubber dog shit or edible underwear. Same shit, different day, right? And this is, of course, why the rest of the board cuts off the balls of every eunuch on the team, because the eunuch, he's got nowhere else to go. Wankers now, team marketing, of course, professional masturbators, guardians of the brand. Easiest job in the friggin' world, I'd suggest, because you just do what the agency says. You go to lunch a lot, you get told how great you are endlessly, and then if it all falls in a terrible smoking heap, you just fire the agency and go again. This job is a perfect fit for the talentless tool. Weasels now, customer care. The dark art of seeming to give a shit while actually seeing how many legitimate claims can be denied, thus pumping up the bottom line. Yes. And of course, the rats from HR and legal. Where would we be without the timely input from Team Rat to make sure that every fucked up decision we make does not violate some, important policy or, heaven forbid, a law? So, as I see it, this absurd Hyundai Shitsville decision to go for the cash and throw the brand under the bus is most probably mainly the result of a boardroom tiff between Team Snake and Team Wanker. I can see the senior VP of Snake Operations making a fairly compelling case, 5 to 10 million extra does sound pretty good in the weekly conference call back to Seoul, doesn't it? There'd be a case of soju in that, and not just the cheap shit, I'd suggest. GM of Wanker Operations up against the ropes in all of this, pointing out that this is something of a bad look for the brand, which some horrible asshole will doubtless point out, possibly on YouTube, while the head of Weasel Operations and the top rat, they busy themselves freshening up the coffees, and perhaps old Squeaky from product planning getting the foil off the platter of those little triangular sandwiches with the corners cut off. Yes. I can see this in my mind's eye because it's actually much closer to what actually happens in every car import operation in the nation than you might think. Perhaps this battle was a foregone conclusion at Hyundai because whoever's head of Wanker Ops right now, I think his first job, and this was only a few months ago, was to dispose of the still warm corpse of his predecessor and clean up the bloodstains before joining the team outside the real world in the sewer. Baptism of fire. Car companies are predisposed to lean this way anyway, of course, right? Because they've all got one thing in common. No matter if you are the company's top snake, the eunuch-in-chief, the wanker, the weasel, the rat, it doesn't matter where you are in the sewer of elite car import operations for any brand. Here's what you've got in common with everyone else on every team in the country, at competitors, whatever. You typically have no fucking idea what it is like to sit down in a dealership and pass 50, 60, 70 grand, whatever, across the table of your own frigging after-tax income in exchange for a badge with a friggin' car attached, which you will depend on for your sole transportation for the next 5 years. No fucking idea. The whole concept of doing that, it's just an abstraction inside the sewer, right? Where one is super insulated from the reality of actually owning a car. Like, hands up, the number of senior executives in car companies in Shitsville who've actually bought a car recently with their own money. I'm not seeing too many hands, really. What's the easiest thing for a car maker to do, right, as a fringe benefit for senior employees? Just hand them a new car every 3 months for free and, hey, one for the missus, if you don't mind. Plus, here's a dirty big pool of company cars and you can drive any one of those at any time. Like, dive in, dude. The fish are biting. Buying a car, committing to the deal, anteing up the fat stack of cash and actually joining the fucking alleged family consummating the marriage, in other words, that's not something a senior snake, eunuch, wanker, weasel or rat ever does. Is it any wonder, therefore, that they really cannot empathise with people like you with your snout up the arse of some queue and see decisions like this for the real kick in the guts which they actually are? This is why they can all sit around in the sewer with their platter of crustless triangle fucking sandwiches and high-five each other over a consensus that decisions like this are acceptable in the circumstances. This is moral relativism off its meds, right? Or playing tennis without the friggin' net. I can't decide. So, sorry, Hyundai, I do generally love your work, right? But throwing real people under the bus at the 11th hour of their extended snout-in-queue experience, it's a hell of a shit way to welcome anyone into a family.